good for you. Come on. We'll think of another place. Come with me. Let's have a smoke break. Nah, not just a normal break. Just smoke break. Smoke break. Smoke break.
30 seconds and counting.
There were plenty of years where there were guys who would dread being drafted by the Buffalo Bills. Not anymore.
Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds.
Brandon Beane realizes they're in a window of 2 to 3 years max to get this done while the iron's still hot. And getting Von Miller into that situation was big for the Bills.
10, 9.
Oh, baby.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Great interview, guys.
Oh man, welcome in, folks. What's happening, Buffalo Fanatics? C-Bot here with you, Wednesday, March 6th, with some breaking news. We just hear from Adam Schefter. No more than 10 minutes ago, one of the legends of the new era of the Buffalo Bills is no longer a Buffalo Bill. This is a shock to me. It might be a shock to you. I'm stunned. I'm learning it in real time with you here on the Smoke Break. Powered by BetUS, where the game begins. Make sure to check the link out in the description below for a 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,500 with the promo code JOIN125. If you're just tuning in, if you're just looking down on your phone for the first time, in the last 15 minutes or so, the Bills are releasing Jordan Poyer. That is officially confirmed by Adam Schefter, and it's making its way around the Twitterverse and the internet as we speak. Here is the tweet from Adam Schefter about 15 minutes ago. He shares, quote, Bills are releasing Jordan Poyer per source. Free agency safety market grows. And the safety market currently for free agency is pretty abundant. I did not see this coming. I had, so the other day, Rico and I did a show together. We were talking about what our overall thoughts were from Brandon Beane's press conference at the Combine. And my first takeaway, it's funny, we go back and look at it. My first takeaway from Brandon Beane when he spoke to the media at the Combine was, it sounds to me like Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde are getting broken up, because he was asked directly about this tandem staying together. They had been together for 7 years, and Brandon Beane had highlighted how that was pretty much unprecedented in this league. Brandon Beane had said how spoiled the Buffalo Bills were to have had the ability to have probably the best safety tandem in the league over how long here? I mean, really, since Sean McDermott has taken over the Buffalo Bills, who's had it better at the safety position than these Buffalo Bills? And I don't know what it was, but it was the tone in which Brandon Beane spoke on this question that made me feel as though this isn't going to happen. But I personally thought Micah Hyde was going to be the one they were going to move off from. If we go back to right when the season ended, right after the Bills lose to the Kansas City Chiefs, Rachel Bush, Jordan Poyer's wife, she took to the internet and she basically came out and said that job wasn't finished in Buffalo for Jordan. She basically came out and said, we're trying to still chase that ring. It was the opposite for Micah Hyde, whose wife had kind of come out on Instagram and given a farewell almost. it had felt like they were never going to be able to keep both. It just felt like the way that the contracts were situated, the way the Bills' current cap space is situated, and of course their age being a factor and injury history being a factor, it did not feel as though both of these guys would be brought back. But if you had a gun to my head, I would have guessed it would have been Micah Hyde they were going to move on from. And who's to say that they don't? Who's to say that both Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde will not be moved on from? I was not expecting today, though, folks. I was just sitting downstairs with the cats, checking in on them midday, and I looked down, and it's amazing this time of year. This is what it is. This time of year, you're minding your own business, right? You're giving the cats some food, right? In 1 minute. The other minute, you look at your phone, Jordan Poyer's no longer a Buffalo Bill. Let's take a look at some of your live reactions. Once again, folks, if you're just joining us, you can see it right here on your screen via Adam Schefter at 3:11 this afternoon. Jordan Poyer will be released by the Buffalo Bills, and he will hit the free agency market. Now, this is the odd thing about Jordan Poyer. When we think about Jordan Poyer leaving the Bills, in all honesty, when I think about Jordan Poyer leaving the Bills, I think about him leaving the league. This is the odd thing that's just hitting me. Like when I think about Jordan Poyer, I think about him retiring as a Bill. Now you have to wonder, where's Jordan Poyer going to be playing ball in 2024? Because I don't think he's done. I mean, let's look at it. Jordan Poyer, yeah, we know he's getting up there in age, but he's still, my God, Jordan Poyer is still capable of making some unbelievable plays in this league. Might I remind you of one of the last plays that these Buffalo Bills distributed on defense this past season? Jordan Poyer caused the fumble on the inch line against the Kansas City Chiefs that even kept that game alive. We can talk all day about Tyler Bass missing the field goal. We can talk all day about Josh Allen not hitting Khalil Shakir in the back of the end zone, right? We can talk all day about him not taking the underneath route to Stephon Diggs, getting the first down, this and that. None of that would have mattered if Jordan Poyer doesn't force the fumble on McCole Hardman on the inch line. It goes out of bounds, and the Bills get the ball back. I mean, think about how much more we would be talking about that unbelievably poorly planned fake punt that the Buffalo Bills tried to run with DeMar Hamlin towards the end of that football game. You basically forget that that was an element of that game because of the play Jordan Poyer made on the football field. So this guy still has a ton of good football ahead of him. Now, are his prime years in the past? More than likely, but I still felt like there was plenty of tread left on the tires, and he was going to exhaust that tread with these Buffalo Bills, and now that's just not going to be the case. And now it makes you wonder a variety of different things, right? It makes you wonder, is Micah Hyde going to be gone as well? That's one of the first questions I have. It also makes you wonder, where is Jordan Poyer going to be playing football in 2024? We all remember, if you do, well, maybe not all of us, but maybe I'm sure some of you remember that last year when this was a topic, we were discussing whether or not they were going to bring Jordan Poyer back, right? Many people had issues with him talking about the fact that he wanted to potentially go and play somewhere with less income tax. Remember, it was a whole thing. Everybody was getting in a massive argument about it. Why would he want to leave Buffalo? And I only reason I remember this is because I had a huge argument / debate with people about the fact that, you know, if it was you in that position, you'd have every right to consider doing your job in a state where you can make more money. People always think about the selfish aspects of this game, and that's their fanhood. They never think about the reality of the situation and the fact that this is a job for a lot of these guys. But I remember, or not a lot of these guys, all of these guys, but a lot of them look at it as their job, right? And one of the big incentives of a job is your pay. And I remember a big conversation surrounding Jordan Poyer, of course, was him wanting to go maybe play in Miami potentially because there was no income tax, no state tax. And the reason I bring that up is because maybe that's now a factor. this was a conversation that was had surrounding Jordan Poyer, maybe going and potentially playing for a Miami or a Las Vegas or maybe a Dallas Cowboys, a place that doesn't have income tax. I'm just thinking out loud here, folks. I'm learning this all in here in real time with you too. But are we? I'm looking in the chat now. Saran Neal also being let go as well. Is that in real time as well, folks? Wow, we got a lot going on here at once because immediately after, the Bills also plan to restructure Rasul Douglas. So we're keeping Rasul Douglas. Wow, a lot going on here on the smoke break, folks. Man, a lot going on. Thanks so much for joining in, by the way, mid-afternoon. We got almost 1,400 of you in here on a mid-Wednesday afternoon as a lot's going down at One Bills Drive. If you're just joining, Jordan Poyer no longer a Buffalo Bill. I guess the silver lining in this, folks, the silver lining right now, the Bills are restructuring Rasul Douglas. Let's take a moment. And at least be thankful that we have that positivity coming out of this. Rasul Douglas comes to this team last year. No one was expecting Rasul Douglas to join the Buffalo Bills and be one of their best players for the duration of the season on defense. He could have very well been a guy they were going to have to move off from this coming off season, depending on how the dominoes fell, depending on what the situation was with the cap. We are now learning right here via Adam Schefter, the Bills plan to restructure cornerback Rasul Douglas's contract to save approximately $2.5 million against their cap per source. So, wow. Brandon Beane, no Wednesdays off for Brandon Beane. Hump day, and he's not looking forward to the weekend because he is strictly business today. I'm seeing talk about Saran Neal. Where are you guys seeing this? I guess I'll just head over to my Twitter here and take a look. And I'm sure this will be one of the first things that pops up, I guess. Yep, there it is, via our very own here at Buffalo Fanatics. Shout out to Pierre, Bobby, or Rico, whoever put this up. Breaking. The Bills have released safety Saran Neal. Okay, so am I playing safety this year? Are they trotting Z-Bot out to play safety? I think, folks, we are learning very, very, very we're learning in very real time here that the Buffalo Bills are going to be channeling safety in the draft. Can we not come to that conclusion? This, I love my man right here, by the way. As I was saying, am I playing safety this year? My man on Twitter here, Prod by Mooney says, looks like I'll be playing safety next season. Yep, Jacob right here saying, looks like we're drafting a safety. Wow. Yeah, so I guess we go from, this is why I always felt, right? I always felt that since wide receiver was so wanted by this fan base throughout the last several months, knowing the draft being around the corner, if you asked anybody, who do you want the Bills to draft? Everybody says wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver. It almost felt as though everyone wanted wide receiver so badly that it was just not going to happen. Now, to me, it feels like you have got to be thinking going into this draft, the Bills are going to be, at the very least, hammering in on a safety in the first round, if not in the first 3 rounds. There's just no way. There's just no way that they don't. This is a lot going on at once, folks. We got over 1,500 of you in here at the same time. Welcome in. A lot going on at One Bills Drive. Jordan Poyer, released by the Bills. Saran Neal, released by the Bills. And it sounds like the Bills are restructuring Rasul Douglas to save some money off the cap as well. Jeremiah Poyer, I believe is he brothers or cousins with Jordan Poyer? He says, well, bombs away. I don't know what this means. Wow. What an idiot he is. Alex Tuck fan club responds, no way you're calling Brandon Beane an idiot. Jeremiah Poyer says, sure am. I forget. I see Jeremiah pop up on my Twitter every now and then. I forget if he might be Jordan's cousin. Maybe I forget. I think he might be his cousin. Always showing love though to his fam. I mean, he's like always rooting for Jordan, obviously. But this is interesting. So soon, 311's when at 311, not the band. Amber still is the color of your energy, but at 311, when Jordan or when Adam Schefter tweeted out that Jordan Poyer was no longer going to be a Bill, Jeremiah Poyer immediately responds, well, bombs away. What an idiot he is. Alec Tuck fan club immediately responds, says, no way you're calling Brandon Beane an idiot. Jeremiah Poyer says, sure am. RC3. Okay, thanks for confirmation in the chat, by the way, guys. It's his brother. Okay, I wasn't sure if it was his brother or his cousin, so it is his brother, according to RC3. Hey, look, if I'm my sister, very, very, very different situation, but my sister was a All-American lacrosse player, and she went from, oh, God, you got random, the random Twitter shit that pops up. I mean, what are we doing here? What are we doing here, folks? My God, apologies. Jesus Christ. But what I was saying is that, oh my God, the stuff that pops up on Twitter is just hilarious. But my sister transferred colleges, and I remember she transferred colleges because she didn't love how things were going in one spot. So of course, every time I was asked about it, you defend her on the situation. Of course, you always go with the family member, the person. So of course, Jeremiah Poyer is going to defend his brother in that situation. But I personally was not expecting him to be cut, at least not today. I did not think that we were going to get this information, this move this early, at least. This early. I mean, we are very early here in the stages of the offseason here. And of course, the free agency market hasn't even opened up yet. We're going to be opening up free agency in a week from today, right? The 13th is when free agency kicks off. So let's go over to Spot Track and let's take a look if this is updated yet or not. The Bills, of course, already cut Nyheim Hines as well. This looks like this might have been updated. Let's take a look. Looking for Poyer on here. I'm not seeing his name. Yep, this looks like this has been updated. These guys who work this website are incredible, by the way. So they already have the restructure. The restructure option for Rasul Douglas is gone. So I'm anticipating they already updated that. Okay, but they haven't cut Nyheim Hines, but that hasn't been officially done yet. But that's happening. So you get rid of Nyheim Hines, right? And where's Jordan Poyer on this? I'm just taking my time going through this, making sure he's not still on here. So if that's the case, the Bills are sitting around $30 million right now. So the Bills are sitting around $30 million right now underneath of the cap situation. This is going to be, of course, when Nyheim Hines gets released, right? And just a quick, we've gone over this before, but a quick, example of a restructuring of Josh Allen's contract can get you down to about 12. The Von Miller situation is one we're going to be keeping an eye on. Of course, Tre'Davious White and Dawson Knox. To me, those are the big three that I'm keeping an eye on, right? Because those three to me are the ones that you feel like have to be reworked or going to be reworked at some point. Getting a random phone call from the Massachusetts area. Whatever that might be. I look down, I'm like, who the hell's calling me from Massachusetts? Unless it's Bill Belichick trying to send me Kendrick Bourne. I don't know, even though he's not with the Bills. Sorry, this is all happening in real time here. So as we go through here, this is, I believe, updated without the subtraction of Nyheim Hines. So we're looking at about $30 million right now currently with the cap situation for these Buffalo Bills. Let's go back to see what the reaction is from the fan base from Adam Schefter's tweet that the Bills are moving on from Jordan Poyer. I think from the majority of people, this is going to be coming as a shock. People are already trying to lure Jordan Poyer to their fan base. Here you got SpongeBob with a chub on, hoping that he comes to the Cleveland Browns, trying to bring him back to Philadelphia. Cleveland Browns, Chicago Bears, big loss. FanDuel Sportsbook is stunned. I mean, this is stunning. This is stunning, folks. I did not expect this. What's going on now at the big question now that remains is what's going on at safety? You ask yourself today, what are the Bills going to do at the safety position? I mean, I understand people in here saying, Jordan Poyer, not what he used to be, right? And we all know this. He's not prime Jordan Poyer anymore. That's what happens when you're this far into your career, right? But he was still, like I just mentioned not all that long ago, still a damn great playmaker for this team. And when you think about the cornerstone of these Buffalo Bills over the regime under Sean McDermott, you cannot speak on that period without Jordan Poyer being towards the forefront. Now, we all know that as time has gone on here, we knew that the possibility of this happening was increasing. We didn't know that it was going to be an inevitability. But in the same breath, when you got Saran Neal gone and you got Jordan Poyer gone and you don't know the status of Micah Hyde, and that in itself could be up in the air to begin with, I don't know what the plan is now. So it's either the Bills go and try and make a major move at the safety position in free agency, or they're completely going to be reliant on trying to fill that void in the draft. Let's take a look currently now at what the availability is looking like for the safety position on the free agency market. Obviously, Jordan Poyer added to that list now. So we'll take a look here. Spot Track's got the list of available, current available free agents at the safety position. And here they are. Now, obviously, we all know that it's not going to be as easy as just going and grabbing anybody off the branch here with the situation the Bills currently have. The way that they're currently strapped up cap wise, but it seems to me like the initiative here is going to be, we're heading into the draft and safety is going to be one of the top it's going to be the top priority, I guess. So according to Ari Marav, is it on Twitter? He says that the move with Poyer, that frees up about $6 million. As we know, Micah Hyde, so they're both free agents currently. And I'm just wondering if the inevitable is being delayed now at this point with Micah Hyde as well. I wonder if, as we sit here, let me know what you guys think in the chat. Do you think it's an inevitability the Bills also just move off of Jordan or Micah Hyde? Don't bring him back. He's a free agent. I mean, I don't know if the Bills are going to make it happen with Micah Hyde. Do you think that that's a priority? Now, I originally had thought that Micah Hyde was going to be the first casualty of the safety tandem. I did not anticipate Jordan Poyer being the first to go. And as we know, Micah, he's been dealing with injuries throughout his career, and last year once again. But when he's healthy, he's been great. But now as a free agent with Jordan gone, I wonder if this is all but inevitable at this point that Micah Hyde just will not be a Bill again. The Saron Neal move for the Bills, according to Ian Rappaport, that's gonna free up about $3 million. So when I had that spot track up, I'm not sure if that's entirely updated. I have to find through it here or fan through it to see exactly what has been updated. I don't know how real time this stuff is. I mean, usually it is pretty good, which is miraculous. I don't know how these guys do it. But it sits at $35 million right now. I'm not sure if that does incorporate moving on from Neal and the money saved with Jordan Poyer, because that adds up to about $9 million. As I said earlier, the Bills are sitting at $35 million over. So from the looks of it, from what I can tell, it looks like it has counted against it. But with the addition of the Nyheim Hines cut, the Bills are sitting at around 30, if that's not already updated. You guys let me know if you're seeing anything otherwise, because I'd like to get the most updated cap situation possible. By the way, hit that like button while you're in here. We got over 2,000 in here right now talking about a very sad departure in Jordan Poyer leaving our Buffalo Bills today. We'll talk in a minute here about truly what kind of player he's been for these Buffalo Bills, because it deserves to be talked about. He has truly been a cornerstone for these Buffalo Bills, man. I just wanted to get an updated cap number on here. Let's see. Spot Track has it at $35 million, not including Nyheim Hines. So, I mean, that's why I'm not entirely sure if that's the updated situation or not. It doesn't seem right to me. I feel like it should be lower than that after you just cut $9 million off the top with Saron Neal and Jordan Poyer. I feel like it's more in the mid-20s. And then you also restructure Rasul Douglas's 2.5. So if we add that up, if we add it up right now, we take $5.7 million saved off the cap with the Jordan Poyer situation, $2.5 million saved off the cap with the Rasul Douglas restructuring. And then with Saron Neal, that saves about $3.5 million. So, I mean, a pretty significant afternoon at one Bills drive. The one positive as we watch Jordan Poyer leave here, I will say, though, the one positive we sit here and are able to celebrate. I mean, I know it's tough to think that way when you're watching one of the better players these Bills have had throughout the last decade or so walk out the door. I mean, it is very positive to know that you have Rasul Douglas locked down. I feel great about that. That was something that I don't know if we were completely certain on. So in one breath, you're losing Jordan Poyer and that completely blows. But I will say, if you could find a silver lining in the moment, and it's tough to right now, it's nice to know, hey, at the very least, we got Rasul Douglas locked up. You can pretty much guarantee he's going to be a starting corner next year. Let's talk about Jordan Poyer. Man, I'll tell you what. Has there been anybody who's truly embodied the Buffalo Bills more in his time as a Buffalo Bill than Jordan Poyer? Let's go back and talk about what these Buffalo Bills were right around the time Sean McDermott took over. Because when Sean McDermott took over, this was still a period when these Buffalo Bills were the same as they were my entire upbringing, right? And these Buffalo Bills were mediocre at best, essentially one of the laughing stocks of the league, Never good enough to be in the playoffs, right? Never good enough to be a contender, but really never bad enough to be picking in the top 5. Pretty much the worst possible place you could be in the league. There's nowhere in the league you'd rather not be than in the depths of mediocrity. And that, of course, is what the Buffalo Bills were in for the longest time. And of course, we all know that Josh Allen is the main reason that the Bills have been lifted from the depths of mediocrity, right? But we have to remember that the tide started to change prior to the acquisition of Josh Allen. The drought was ended prior. The drought was ended when Sean McDermott takes this team over and essentially makes the playoffs on the back of the defense. And we all know that this Buffalo Bills team, their defense has been nothing shy of extraordinary since Sean McDermott has taken over. Whether you love Sean McDermott, whether you hate Sean McDermott, these Buffalo Bills have had one of the best defenses in the league because of him since he has been the head coach of these Buffalo Bills. And I think there was no better coaching job during his time with these Bills than last year, because he proved to you exactly why he has his job in the first place. He has his job as a head coach because of how good of a defensive coach he is. And last year, when he was faced with the utmost scrutiny, on top of the fact a near improbable roster situation, Sean McDermott was able to come out on top, put that defense together, was able to find the puzzle pieces to work one week, work another week, right? But we go back to when this all started, and Sean McDermott takes over in 2017, and they end up winning their first playoff game in my lifetime. They end the drought, right? And we go back to when this all started. Sean McDermott takes over in 2017 for these Buffalo Bills. Jordan Poyer joins these Buffalo Bills in 2017 from the Cleveland Browns. So you can't go back and talk about the beginning of what we know the Buffalo Bills to be now, really, without going back to the beginning of Sean McDermott's tenure with this team, which just so happens to be completely linked with the beginning of a new regime at defense as well. Jordan Poyer enters the Buffalo Bills in 2017, and the Bills have never really looked back since, outside of 1 year, rookie year Josh Allen, where we had to ride the wave and essentially allow Josh Allen to form into Josh Allen. These Buffalo Bills have been one of the best teams in the league. Josh Allen certainly has a ton to do with that. The acquisition of Stephon Diggs certainly had a ton to do with that. And we all know that when you have a great quarterback in this league, winning comes a lot easier than if you don't. But we all know that a lot of the success that these Buffalo Bills have had during this period has been because of their defense. And there's no secret as to why Jordan Poyer is one of the names you think of when you think of the Buffalo Bills. And it's because he has been one of the faces of this defense throughout the entirety of the Sean McDermott run. And that's why if you're a Bills fan today and you sit back and you look at your phone and you look down and you see, oh my God, Jordan Poyer, no longer a Bill, that's why it hits home more than it might if it was any other player. Because it really felt like he was one of those guys that was here for the beginning, almost at the beginning of the end, if you will, the beginning of the end of the old Bills, the beginning of the new era of the Bills, the beginning of the end of the old era. When Jordan Poyer joins this team, when Sean McDermott takes over a year later, when Josh Allen is drafted, those old Bills became quickly a thing of the past. And I know 2017, it doesn't feel like it was all that long ago now, but you blink and folks, 2017 somehow was 7 years ago. Doesn't feel that way to me. Even when you say 2017 out loud, it's almost like you want to say, wow, 2017, what was that? 2 years ago? No, 7 years ago. We went about a solid 20 years where the Buffalo Bills were a joke. And it was right at around the 2017 mark where that joke started to lose its luster. It no longer was the punchline. And Jordan Poyer comes to these Bills in that year and was one of the reasons why they enjoyed as much success as they have over these last 7 years. And when you think about the safety position, it goes beyond the Buffalo Bills. When you think about Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, it goes beyond the success that they've had with the Bills. It goes beyond them being Buffalo Bills. If you survey the entire league, it does not get better than what Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde brought to the table as a safety tandem for these Buffalo Bills. I think it's almost unarguable that that was the best safety tandem in the league throughout its run. And as Brandon Beane said the other day, and this is when I first got the inkling that this might be coming to an end here soon, he had said, it's amazing we had the run we did while we did, because a 7-year run with potentially the best safety tandem in the league is unprecedented, and he's right. But you go back to when it all started to change, folks. You go back to when it all started to change. In 2017, think back on that. Think back on what the Bills were prior to 2017. And within that 1 year, all the guys we're talking about right now in this same breath, they all joined the Bills in this same season. Micah Hyde, a Bill in 2017. Right? Jordan Poyer, a Bill in 2017. Sean McDermott takes over the Buffalo Bills as head coach in 2017. This is why on my show I keep referring to this new chapter with these Buffalo Bills. This is the reason why right here. This to me is why this upcoming draft is so pivotal. This is why it's so pivotal. You are watching one page be turned to the next in the book of the Buffalo Bills, but these next couple of page turns are chapter turners. As I sit here talking to you about the 2017 chapter of the Buffalo Bills, think about how much changed. Micah Hyde joins, right? Jordan Poyer joins. Sean McDermott takes over as head coach. This is all coming to an end today, essentially. The tandem's gone. Whether Micah Hyde stays or not is one thing, but the tandem itself that we have enjoyed as Bills fans of Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer in Buffalo, that's done. We've been enjoying that since 2017. It's done. Many people out there last year, right, calling for Sean McDermott's job. And then, of course, we don't know if Micah Hyde joins or not. This is the 7 years here where you go from this is what it was 7 years ago to now this is how much things change. And we also know that Gabe Davis more than likely going to be out the door. We don't know what the future holds with Stephon Diggs. We don't know what the future holds with Tre'Davious White, right? The chapters are turning here. And this is one of the biggest indicators. That's why it hits home as much as it does. Not only are you losing a great, not only are you losing one of the Bills' legends of the last decade or so, but it really is that gut punch where you sit back and realize the chapters are turning now. And it's time that the Buffalo Bills really put their best foot forward in making sure that this next chapter, this next iteration, is as good as it can possibly be. It's going to be very tough to outdo what the Bills were able to do to get to this point. I mean, you look at that 2017 year alone, it's amazing. In the same year, you bring in Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, they end up becoming the best safety tandem in the league. It's pretty remarkable. Sad day today. Sad day today as the Buffalo Bills announced that they will be parting ways with Jordan Poyer. I didn't see this coming today, folks. I don't know where you're at with it. I'm bummed out. I got a question I'm going to pose to the chat that my main man Pierre asked on Twitter. I'm going to pose this to the chat in just a second. One quick word from BetUS before I do. By the way, we got over 2,600 of you in here right now. Crazy. We're talking about Jordan Poyer leaving the Buffalo Bills. Sad, sad day. This episode of The Smoke Break, by the way, is brought to you by my good friends over at BetUS. Right now, you can take advantage of a 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,500 with the code JOIN125. And BetUS has been constantly adding odds for free agent players and where they're going to end up landing. So who knows, maybe in the near future, BetUS might have the betting odds for where Jordan Poyer ends up landing. I'd be interested to see if they do, because I love being able to go and look on the website and see where the potential landing spots are. So maybe they'll have that up in the near future here. Quick word from BetUS before we go to a question posed by my main man, Pierre, that I find to be very interesting. Here's that quick word from BetUS.
BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
So Pierre takes to Twitter, and Pierre's asking the question to Bills Mafia. He's saying, did Jordan Poyer earn a Bills Wall of Fame spot? And I think that that's an awfully interesting question. We'll go to the comment section real quick, and it seems as though we're kind of split. Got a couple of people down on the bottom saying no. Got a couple of people on the top saying yeah. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, let's go back to once again what I was just talking about here. What I was just talking about is this change, this massive change for these Buffalo Bills in a very short period of time. And I think that was, the Jordan Poyer acquisition, the Micah Hyde acquisition, the hiring of Sean McDermott. These were all major culture shifters, once in a lifetime type changes, right? I mean, and you might think, you might listen to me say that, and you might say, what do you mean once in a lifetime? Whatever. There are a couple of safeties. It's a head coach. I went 20 years, folks, growing up with the inability for this Bills team to find anything worth a damn. Any semblance of culture, any semblance of continuity. I mean, folks, it was 20 straight years of just hoping to God you wound up getting what we got. And I think you'd be hard-pressed to say that we would have had what we had defensively if it weren't for that tandem. There's a reason why these guys have been captains of this team for as long as they have. So when you ask the question, is Jordan Poyer a Wall of Famer? I think that there's certainly an argument for it. I think there's certainly an argument for that. Are we saying Mitch Morse just got really? I mean, folks, what is going on here today? Aaron Allen saying Mitch Morse just got released. Let me check in on this. Dude, wow. Wow. Oh, what are we doing today? Folks, this just in on the smoke break. While we're on the topic of losing recent legends for this team, I mean, wow. This just in. Via Ian Rappaport and Mike Garofalo, the Bills are releasing center Mitch Morse. I mean, what is going on? Oh, my God. Wednesday, March 6th, let it be known as a day where it just feels like the last decade or so of my Buffalo Bills is ending before my eyes. Oh, my God. Mitch Morse. You know what's so funny about Mitch Morse? You want to talk about one of the more underrated players in the league for how long? When you think about Mitch Morse, when you think about the offensive line for these Bills, it's felt like Mitch Morse has been such a staple for this team that you don't even really bring him up. You know what I mean? You don't even really I don't even know how else to describe it, but you don't even really bring up Mitch Morse because he's been such a cornerstone for this team. When you're talking about the offensive line, you usually you're talking about Deion Dawkins, Spencer Brown. Like, you don't even bring up Mitch Morse because you just know what you have in Mitch Morse. He's just been such a cornerstone, you almost forget about him because he's just been that good for these Bills. And we all know he's had his concussion problem, and maybe that has something to do with this. And I think he probably played a bit longer than we could have anticipated, but my God. Oh, this is a bummer of a day. I mean, listen, I understand it's a business. Business is business, folks. The NFL is a business. We all know this. The NFL is a business, and it's a salary cap-driven one at that. And the Bills are certainly in a position right now where the salary cap is not their friend. But this is a sad day today. It's a sad day today. Couple of longtime Buffalo Bills gone. In like I was saying earlier, in one moment you're making a coffee, you're making sure the cats aren't killing themselves. You look back at your phone, and two couple of Bills legends are gone. If you're just joining us, folks, and my God, we got almost 3,100 people in here. What a day. Oh, my God, what a day in Buffalo. We got 3,100 people in here live on a Wednesday at 4 o'clock. Something must be going on, you might be asking if you're just tuning in. Something going on indeed, folks. Mitch Morse, 4 minutes ago, announced from Ian Rappaport and Mike Garofalo, will be released by the Buffalo Bills. And that's just the additional scoop on a Sunday of wildness, as we also lose Jordan Poyer today. Jordan Poyer released by the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills also restructure Rasul Douglas's deal. He'll be sticking around. But wow, a crazy day. King Cam coming in. He's saying Connor McGovern gone as well. Interesting because they just... No, this can't be King Cam. I think you might have a little bit twisted here. This is just another thing in here now. They had just restructured. They just restructured Connor McGovern. Ian Rappaport's now saying 5 minutes ago, because the Bills restructured Connor McGovern. That was the first thing they did to start the free agency or to start the offseason. They just did this last week. Ian Rappaport's now saying Connor McGovern is going to be moving to center. The Bills just signed David Edwards to an extension. He's going to start at guard. I mean, this is just Deonte Harty gone now too. I mean, why not? Chat's just firing off left and right. Is that via Rappaport as well? Is anybody else doing anything today but the Buffalo Bills? The Bills are now the Bills are planning to release wide receiver and return specialist Deonte Harty, per me and Tom Pelissero, according to Ian Rappaport. The former All-Pro now heads to free agency. I mean, did Brandon Beane sit down with like an 18 rack of Red Bull and just say, we're going to get this all done today? I mean, did he sit down today with a keg of espresso and just say, we're going to keep pouring them out, we're getting this all done in one shot here? I mean, this is an hour's worth of just rapid fire clearinghouse at One Bills Drive right now. This is just an absolute turret of stuff coming out of One Bills Drive. I can't even keep my thoughts in order here. I don't know. Let me see if we can get this cap situation updated now. This spot track's impressive. Something they definitely just updated this in real time. Okay. Now, this is obviously more updated than it was 15, 20 minutes ago, folks, when we looked at this. The Bills not even, I mean, this is what Brandon Beane has done in the last hour, folks. I mean, this is insane. As we sat here about, I don't know, 20 minutes ago, the Bills were sitting at about $40 million over the cap, and now they're under $20 million over the cap. So within a span of, I mean, in the time it would have taken you to like place an online order for McDonald's, drive over to the drive-thru, swing through it, grab the order, and come back and sit back on your couch and stuff your fat face with it. All of this has occurred. I mean, seriously, within a 20-minute span, I don't think I could have had a pizza delivered to my door in the matter of time the Bills just saved $20 million off the cap. Seriously. I mean, if I were to have called up the pizza joint and said, yeah, let's do a pepperoni and sausage and a dozen wings, and then hung the phone up, I don't think it would have reached the door in the time the Bills have moved off of Jordan Poyer, Mitch Morse, Deonte Harty, restructured Rasul Douglas, and said, oh, by the way, Connor McGovern is going to be playing center this coming season. And we're gonna go from about $36 million over the cap. And by the way, I don't think this factors in Nyheim Hines. It doesn't, because they're planning on cutting him as well. The Bills are at about $15 million. The Bills started out at about, what, $45 million? The Bills were started off at about $45 million. Over the cap. They're now sitting, once they move off of Nyheim Hines, which has already been announced by the team. Once they do that, they're going to be at about 15. I mean, this is major moves today. Wow. Over 3,500 of you in here on the smoke break on a Wednesday afternoon. Appreciate all you guys joining in. Make sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments, because there are a lot of thoughts to be had. Tons of moves being made today at One Bills Drive out of nowhere. I mean, that is the offseason, folks. You wonder why I constantly refer to the NFL as the greatest reality television show going? This is why. Because it never ends. It never ends. The NFL doesn't stop. I mean, you got March Madness is about to start in like 2 weeks. The NBA playoffs start next month. MLB starts next month, and nobody gives a rat's ass, because the NFL is still king even when the game isn't even being played. You're sitting around on a Wednesday afternoon, mid-afternoon, right? Working away. And the Bills' entire organization just seemingly flips on a dime. It's insanity. Darren Martin comes in with a super chat. Darren says, Beane doesn't have time to play nice with his money. Let him cook. He wants to get a ring this year. No time to play with these old heads. Let's get at it. I mean, look at if you want to say anything about Brandon Beane, the one thing you can't say about him is that he's not playing around. Or that the one thing you can't say is that he's playing around. I mean, Brandon Beane sat down, like, you know, imagine like you're at work like you are every day. Imagine you sit down in your chair at your office, you sit down and you pull yourself in and you crack your knuckles, right? And you say, let's get to work. Brandon Beane sat down today and he said, let's get to work. I mean, this is a day of days. Brandon Beane essentially just did about a week or I don't even know, a month's worth of restructuring, it feels like, in about 45 minutes. Now the question is, folks, right? The question is, well, there's a variety of questions. Hell, there is a shit ton of questions. But here's a couple that comes to my mind, right? For starters, we obviously know, because if we go back to this, by the way, just to let you know how significant the moves made today were in regard to the cap. If we take away Nyheim Hines, if the Bills are just able to restructure Josh Allen, they're going to be $3 million under the cap. I mean, this is how quick things have changed. The Bills like an hour ago, the Bills had the worst cap situation in the league. And they are now one restructure of Josh Allen's contract away from being $3 million underneath the cap. So the question now remains, or the question now being posed, I guess, would be the better way to phrase it. Is this all being done simply because of the cap situation at hand, or is there a much bigger play being crafted here? Because we all know that the cap situation had to be dealt with, but I don't know if it had to be dealt with this drastically in this immediate setting, like the way it's happened today. Is there a bigger move at play? We all know the Bills now have what? They have 10 or 11 draft picks. They're now damn near right where they need to be in the cap situation. And they have plenty of needs. Now I'm wondering what the move is. Is this all being done simply to be able to restructure their cap down to where it needs to be? Or is there a bigger play here? Are the Bills trying to make something happen? What that might be, who the hell knows? But it does make you wonder, if you're doing all of this at one moment, I mean, if you're doing all of this essentially in an hour's worth of time, it feels like there's got to be something Brandon Beane's trying to do in an awfully short period of time, right? This all didn't have to be done today within an hour. I mean, I guess it could. I mean, you want to talk about one of the most efficient afternoons you could possibly have. I mean, essentially, it could just be that and that alone. I mean, it could be Brandon Beane just getting the offseason work done, and then that's that, right? But to me, the question is posed when it's done this quickly. Why is it done so quickly? Why is it all done, within an hour? It now makes you wonder, when the free agency period opens up, if what was done today is in pursuit of getting something else done during that free agency period that we were not anticipating otherwise. So Roger's asking, do we think that the moves are to clear space for Douglas Jones extensions? Well, they just restructured Rasul Douglas, so they could, of course, extend him as well. But I'm imagining, with the fact that they just restructured his deal this afternoon. I mean, and if you haven't heard, that's why. If you haven't heard, it's because there's been so much shit going on. But they restructured Rasul Douglas already. So I don't know if they're paving a way to extend him. I mean, it's crazy. One of my favorite teachers of all time, my main man, my Mr. DeTulio, one of my favorite teachers of all time. He tweets, Mr. DeTulio, legend, man. He's the best. He's one of my all-time favorite teachers. He actually wrote my letter of recommendation for college. And you know it's a crazy day at One Bills Drive when Mr. DeTulio's tweeting at me and he just goes, what the hell is happening? Now, this is a crazy day. It's a crazy day. I mean, there's a lot going on here. There's a ton going on here. So the Mitch Morse situation, that was an $8 million cap saver in itself, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. So, I mean, essentially, I don't know, let's go back to Ian Rappaport here. Let's calculate up just based on what, there's no dollar amount given surrounding the Deonte Harty situation. But so let's just, off the top of my head here. I know Spot Track already kind of updated it, but just to kind of give you a quick idea of what exactly has been done today. We got 8.5 saved off the cap from the Mitch Morse situation. $7.5, I believe, with Jordan Poyer. Sarad Neal was $3 million. And then they restructured Rasul Douglas, which I believe also saved about $3 million as well. Yeah, $2.5 million with the restructuring of Rasul Douglas. Wow. So I'm over here doing like rudimentary math on a basically a napkin. Schefter does the math for me. Bills also releasing wide returner. So these two moves alone were $12.8 million in cap savings. Snap of your finger. Snap of your finger with those two cap moves, or those two moves. My headphones just died. Those two moves in itself, snap of the fingers, $13 million. But if I'm adding it up here, just based on all the moves made today, what the Bills were able to do with their cap, the Bills essentially saved about $20 million in cap space today, within an hour. We're looking at about a $20 million swing in the cap for these Buffalo Bills today, and it's at the hands, and really the main story here, it's not even the cap. The main story here is the fact that the Bills are losing two icons, in my opinion, from the last decade or so, man. That's really the story here. Just an absolute bummer of a day, but a necessary day. This is what happens when you get into the situation that the Bills have gotten themselves into. And all teams deal with this. We know this. All teams deal with this. But you want to know what? This is a great point Adam's making here. This is what is the biggest bummer about this situation. It's everybody's used to losing guys in this league. You have to lose guys on a yearly basis. The league is not built to be able to continuously roll over team after team after team. I mean, I'm watching the Dynasty right now. The New England Patriots documentary on Apple TV. It's phenomenal. I highly recommend it. Very well done. And the reason I say that is I know we're not very fond of the Patriots. It's a good watch if you're not fond of the Patriots, because it plays both angles. But one of the big angles in the Dynasty is how the Patriots went from one era of the Dynasty to essentially in one draft, the 2009 draft, I believe. They went from one draft being almost fading out to immediately back on top again. And they were losing a ton of veteran leadership. And within one draft, they essentially replenished it all. I mean, within one draft, they got Devin McCourty, Rob Gronkowski. At the time, of course, a major factor in Aaron Hernandez. What I'm getting at is there are eras that just change on a dime. Those Patriots had a core group of guys, right? Obviously, like I said, Teddy Bruschi, Mike Vrabel, guys that this team were relying on, and all of a sudden they're gone. This is what hits the hardest when you lose those cornerstones, those guys with the C on their shirt. And Marco's saying 2010 for that draft, by the way. Thank you. It was a 2010 draft for the Patriots that they get into depth with. It's very interesting. But this is the biggest bummer. Of course, you're losing a ton of talent on the field, right? But it's an added blow when you're losing guys with the C on their shirt, right? It's a real added blow when not only are you losing that talent on the field, but you're losing captains. And I know a lot of people might not view the captainship as a big deal, or maybe as big of a deal as I do, but I find it to be a big deal. I find the overall locker room presence to be one of the more underrated factors of a player. And it's something that I've always felt means a lot to me in regard to drafting a guy, signing a guy, or having a guy be the face of your team. And I have felt that these Bills have had a lot of great cornerstone players be the face of their team over the last almost near decade or so. I mean, that's how long it's been rolling on here now. It's crazy to think about it. But as we talk about Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, the fact that that's closer to a decade in the books than not is wild. And they've had some terrific talent, but at the same time, they've had some terrific leadership. And no question about it, when it comes to that particular point, Jordan Poyer and Mitch Morse have been right there, man. They've been right there. I mean, Mitch Morse, it always felt like he'd take to the podium and wear it on his sleeve, right? Mitch Morse would take to the podium and give you raw, authentic answers and really be a great, solid face for this team when needed. We all know what Jordan Poyer has gone through personally and what he battled through in order to be able to become what he became, not only on the field, but of course in, who he became as a person, battling his alcoholism and battling his inner demons to be able to become the better man that he finds himself to be today. This all happened throughout the course of being a Buffalo Bill, the journey of being within this organization. And that also earned a C on the shirt of Jordan Poyer and Mitch Morse, of course, being a captain of this offense as well. You're in the process now of watching two captains hit the road. It's a bummer. Obviously, it has to happen. Like when you're $40 million over the cap, bummers are around the corner. We all knew this. I think everybody was nobody ever wanted to talk about this. I remember constantly saying last year, like, things are going to be real different real soon. And everybody's just like, not everybody. I don't know. I mean, it just felt like at the time, a lot of people were like, oh, well, that'll happen when it happens. And then this is it happening. This is it happening. It just felt like last year, I feel like we had to have known that last year was going to be the last year where it felt like it was that core Bills, And that don't get my words twisted, by the way. That doesn't mean the Bills aren't going to be a great team, aren't going to be a contender. Right? It just means that it's going to have a different feel. Like Sal's coming in here saying, this is nothing, Z-Bot, calm down. I don't think it's nothing. You're losing two captains in one day. I don't think this is nothing at all. Right? I think you're losing two captains today. You're losing two big faces of this franchise in one day on either side of the ball. I mean, you're losing a cornerstone on either side of the ball within the span of 45 minutes. I can't sit here and say that this is not nothing. I mean, I understand they haven't been the greatest on the field in regard to what we know that they can be, what they have been, but you're losing two captains in one day. That's certainly something. But what I'm getting at is it had to happen, of course. We all know that what they were or what they are now isn't what they were. And we know that as time progresses, it was only going to become more and more evident. What I'm saying is it's a bummer today. It's sad today, not necessarily because you're losing this overwhelming talent on the field in the prime of their career, but you're losing. It just feels like an era kind of ending. That's what it feels like. Right? It feels like an ending of an era. You're losing two captains in one day on either side of the ball. That feels like an era ending. Are we talking about cutting Tre'Davious White right now? Is that what we're doing right now? Is that live here on the smoke break as well, folks? Is that live on the smoke break? I mean, Sal, is this still not? Is this still nothing? Three seconds ago, via Adam Schefter. Guys, you're gonna need to bear with me. I'm like scatterbrained right now. My brain is like 3 seconds ago, more departures on Buffalo's defense. Bills are releasing two-time Pro Bowl cornerback Tre'Davious White per source. Buffalo will designate him as a post-June 1 cut, which will save them $10.2 million in cap space with $6.2 million in dead money. His contract will remain on Buffalo's books until then, but he's free to sign with a new team as early as next week. The Bills, according to Adam Schefter here, they have shaved $26 million off. What is going on? I hopped on this stream thinking we were going to talk about Jordan Poyer for a little while and we were going to end it. I thought we were going to hop on this stream today in the middle of the afternoon, give our love and respect to Jordan Poyer for a terrific run in Buffalo, and we were going to move on our merry way. In the time span in which I've hit the start button on that episode, what I thought to be that episode, in the time span, I sit down here, I create a thumbnail with Jordan Poyer's face on it, right? Exclusively. Jordan Poyer released from the Bills in the title, as you can see below you. And I sit down here and I think, okay, we're going to come on here. This is major news. We're going to sit down. We're going to talk about the departure of Jordan Poyer, how much he meant to the Bills. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, folks. In this hour process, in that time, the Bills have shaved $26 million off the cap. They have not only gotten rid of Jordan Poyer, but they've also gotten rid of their captain and center, Mitch Morse. They have cut cornerback Saron Neal. They have gotten rid of Deonte Harty. The other day, as we know, that was already in foregone conclusion. Naheem Hines was cut, so that doesn't count. But they restructured Rasul Douglas, and now Tre'Davious White is cut. Just taking a look here. Okay, so, man, oh man. So we go back to we go back to 2017, like I was talking about earlier, right? We go back to 2017, and this is now another 2017. This is wild. The beginning iteration of these new Buffalo Bills, which really started to take shape in 2017. This is yet another 2017 member of these Buffalo Bills gone. Tre'Davious White was the first round draft pick for these Bills in 2017. Gone. Jordan Poyer became a Buffalo Bill in 2017. Gone. Micah Hyde became a Buffalo Bill in 2017. I'm starting to feel like it's more and more likely that he's not going to be a Bill. Potentially gone. Where do we begin on Tre'Davious White? The what I can say more than anything, I feel so terrible for him. This was a guy that showed just a relenting amount of promise when he was drafted by the Bills in 2017. Shortly into his career, became an all-pro corner. And if you remember early on in his career, we were having discussions as to whether or not Tre'Davious White might be one of the best corners in the entire game of football. It wasn't a matter of arguing if he was top 10 or this and that. I mean, I know it seems like a while ago maybe, but there were certainly moments where we were discussing whether or not Tre'Davious White was one of the best in the game at the corner position. But then all of a sudden, like what happens to so many people in this league, unfortunately, all of a sudden, injuries ravish. Injuries come out of nowhere, and they can derail careers. And I don't know if today I don't know if today Tre'Davious White is a cap casualty of the Buffalo Bills if he doesn't suffer back-to-back season-ending injuries. You wonder if Tre'Davious White suffers. You wonder if Tre'Davious White suffers one of his injuries, right? Is he back? If Tre'Davious White only suffers the injury in 2022, comes back last year like anticipated, and then doesn't suffer another season-ending injury last year, what are the odds of him being back? I would have to imagine they would be much more likely than not. This is why I feel so absolutely terrible for the guy. You know that last year it took everything for him to come back. Sorry, I'm trying to get my headphones to work. There we go. They're working now. As we know, it took everything for him to come back. It never felt like he felt like he was 100% ready to come back when he did. And it finally felt like once he got a couple of games under his belt, like, because we remember him coming back late last year, right? He comes back, late the year prior. And it just never felt like he was ready to fully be back. And that's why going into last season, you were so excited because you knew Tre'Davious White had a full off season to put the injury behind him, really prepare himself, and we're going to get the full version of the Tre'Davious White experience back in 2023. Because what we knew that experience to be was an awfully good experience. Like I was just mentioning, a former All-Pro, and at one point a guy we were arguing about being one of the better corners in this entire league. And when he came back late in the season off that ACL, it just never felt quite right. And everybody was saying, Tre'Davious White's, he's not going to be what he used to be. He's washed, this and that. No one gave in my opinion, and I shouldn't say no one, but the vast majority of the critics did not give proper credence to the situation. They did not give enough time to Tre'Davious White to adequately heal and come back. He was given that time in the offseason going into this past season. He comes into the year, and it finally felt like a couple games in, we were like, damn, Tre'Davious White's back. Tre'Davious White is back. The old Tre'Davious White is here, and it's good to have him. That's what was so exciting going into last year, right? Is because you knew that you were going to get a healthy Tre'Davious White back, and you were going to have essentially a fully healthy defense going into the 2023 season. Little would we know that throughout the duration of the 2023 season, health would be the biggest concern of the entire team. That was what felt so great about going into the season last year with that defense, right? But we go back to early in the year, and we remember Tre'Davious White getting that interception against the Commanders, right? And it just felt like, all right, let's go. Tre'Davious White's back, baby. You go 1 week after, following week, and Tre'Davious White, another season-ending injury. And you just remember, I can remember seeing the look on his face. And you can remember seeing the entire fan base's look on their face. And you could just tell, I think a lot of people knew in that moment when Tre'Davious White went down against the Miami Dolphins and they bring the cart out. I think a lot of people knew in that moment that that was probably the last time they were going to see Tre'Davious White. As a Buffalo Bill. When you go from an ACL tear to an Achilles tear in back-to-back years at the corner position, it's a very hard proposition to imagine that you're going to be an all-pro caliber player coming back from that. Especially when you have the cap situation that you do in regard to how the team is currently structured and what Tre'Davious White was going to be owed with his contract situation. The whole thing wound up just being a terrible storm. When you combine the two injuries, the cap situation, and Jordan, I'm keep getting all these names piled up. This is insane. All this going on at once. When you take into consideration the back-to-back injuries, when you take into consideration Tre'Davious White's contract, and when you take into consideration the Bills' cap situation, it was a imperfect storm, a perfect storm of imperfectness. And I feel so bad because, I always think back. I remember Thanksgiving Day. I think it was Thanksgiving Day 2 years ago, when they showed the picture of Tre'Davious White and his family on Thanksgiving. And it was hilarious because it's Tre'Davious White and all of his kids, and he had the cutest family ever. And I never forget seeing it because it just looked like they were all kind of like just this one big happy family. And the reason I bring up that photo is because in the photo, it's Tre'Davious White, and he's got a bunch of little kids, and there's his wife. And I think about that photo all the time. Like, I thought about that photo when he went down against the Dolphins, because you're thinking, this is how I think. I don't know how you guys are, but obviously the loss on the football field, the fact that you're losing your first round pick from 2017, the fact that you're losing what was an all-pro corner, the fact that you're losing a starter on this team, the fact that you're losing a starter at a position where you're not very well off to begin with, it all sucks. But then you add on top of it all these other elements, the human element, right? This is a guy who works his ass off his whole career to get to where he's at, to earn a first-round draft pick. Not only do you earn that, but you come into the league and you prove you're worthy of it. You become an all-pro, right? You become a multi-time Pro Bowler. You become one of the best players on this team. You become one of the cornerstones of the beginning of the new era of the Buffalo Bills. You become one of the cornerstones of this new age defense that has been one of the best in the league under Sean McDermott. And within 2 years, you get 2 season-ending injuries, and you think about the family. You think about him. You think about all that went into his life to become what he became, and to have it all end like that. Now, look, it's not like his career's over. Someone's going to sign Tre'Davious White, but this is not the way it's supposed to go. And this is unfortunately the way it goes for some guys. And when you think about it, it's just it's a damn shame. It's a damn shame, and it's sad, and it sucks. And it's sad, and it sucks because he's a hell of a guy. He's hilarious. Everybody loves Tre'Davious White. Find me a Bills fan that does not love Tre'Davious White, and you'll find me a liar if you find one. I'm sad for Tre'Davious White. Richie coming in. We all know this was inevitable, but the kitchen sink all at once, and I think you are putting it perfectly, Rich. Thank you. Damn. Beane must go wide receiver round 1, says Richie. Then he got to have big dick energy at the draft. I think the way you are putting it is the way that it is meant to be put. It's not that I think any of this was shocking. I think in individual increments, we've had this conversation on here. I have. Rico and I together have. We just had this conversation the other day during our mid-afternoon show. In individual increments, I think that swallowing the loss of these guys is probably much more digestible. But within an hour time span, when you get hit across the face with 3 starters gone in the blink of an eye, 3 of your better players, 3 players that you've come to love over the last decade or so, man, it is an absolute jaw adjuster. A total below the belt punch for all of this to occur within the span of literally 45 minutes to an hour. So, Richie, what you're saying is exactly spot on. It's not that all of these things it's not that a lot of this was shocking. I don't think anybody's shocked that the Bills were going to have to make a major move on Tre'Davious White. The Mitch Morse one to me, pretty shocking. I can't lie. I didn't see that coming. I don't know if the Jordan Poyer is shock. I mean, it feels shocking, but it also doesn't, if that makes sense. Right? Jordan Poyer, we knew that it was a possibility. So I can't say it was shocking, even though it does feel shocking. I don't know. But the way you're saying is exactly how I feel. I feel like that's got to be a lot of the way we all feel. It's the kitchen sink all at once. It just feels like you went from nothing to holy shit, everything within an hour. I mean, guys, the Bills went in today with a $40 million cap problem. They went in today $40 million over the cap. And they shaved $26 million off of that before dinner time. Bob's coming in here. Back on taxes. I am a CPA from the Buffalo area. I moved to Naples, Florida, rich area. Good on you, Bob. And it is almost 20% cheaper living in Naples than in Buffalo. Mostly because of taxes. Western New York is getting worse and worse when it comes to taxes. Now, I think the reason Bob's bringing this up, and by the way, thanks for spending the afternoon with us, Bob. I know it is March 6th. You got to be one busy man as a CPA currently in early March as tax season creeps around the corner here. But the reason Bob's bringing up taxes is because I spoke earlier on the reason Jordan Poyer at one point was being talked about going to other teams like the Miami Dolphins last year before they had re-signed him because of tax implications. Living in New York, from a tax perspective, is about as bad as it can possibly get. And I always sympathize with players who had the mindset of, hey, I can make more playing in Miami than playing in Buffalo. Like, if that's a priority for you, I never sat back and judged from that mindset because that always seemed like it's a fair factor for a player to have. It's a fair mindset for a player to have. I can make more here and I want to live here. I mean, that always made sense to me. Now, I don't know. That doesn't really have anything to do with what happened today, but the reason Bob is bringing it up is because I brought it up earlier when talking about maybe potential landing spots for Jordan Poyer now that he's no longer a Buffalo Bill, because we had talked earlier about those potential landing spots from last year when he was discussing potential places he might want to go when it comes to tax implications based on his salary and based on where he's playing. Darren Martin coming in here. He was due $17 million. It was bound to happen. Gives me a lot of confidence for Elam, and I'm not even scared for this secondary because McDermott will coach the hell out of one fire. Let me reread that. Not even scared for this secondary because McDermott will coach the hell out of it. Got to get young. Yeah, no, look at. I have the utmost faith in McDermott's coaching ability to be able to get this team in shape to be competitive. But I think we're all lying to ourselves if we think that it's going to happen overnight when we're losing. I mean, we just lost two. Now, let's keep it into perspective here. One, Kaiir Elam, we don't know. We haven't been given a sample size adequate enough to understand what Kaiir Elam is for this team. The Bills don't even seem to know. You hope to God Kaiir Elam all of a sudden has that leap, like kind of like Spencer Brown this year, where you go into this season and you're like, is Spencer Brown going to be a guy that we're going to be able to rely on this offensive line? Is Spencer Brown a guy that we're going to want to retain on this offensive line? Can he be a young cornerstone for this offense? And I don't think anybody really felt confident in saying he could be. And I think Spencer Brown came into this past season and shattered expectations. We're going to need a leap like that from Kaiir Elam in order to feel comfortable about him at the cornerback position. We have not been given any reason to believe that we should be comfortable in Kaiir Elam being essentially the solution at corner for this team. But moving off of Tre'Davious White, I don't know if it indicates that there's confidence in Kaiir Elam or it's just something that had to be done because of the injury situation and because of the cap situation. Maybe it's a combination of both, but I personally think it has probably a lot more to do with the fact that you have a player going into his, 8th season off of 2 season-ending injuries with a major cap hit. That's why I was saying earlier, it is a perfect storm of imperfect elements. And that's why it sucks so bad for Tre'Davious White. That's why my heart just absolutely breaks for the damn guy. It's just, it couldn't be a worse concoction of shit. Really. I have all the confidence in the world for McDermott, but there's going to have to be pieces put into play in order to get things situated. Now, we do know, if you're just joining and don't know all of what happened today, one of the elements that did occur today in this, one of the ingredients in this ever-changing stew of insanity that's going on at One Bills Drive today, one of the ingredients was that Rasul Douglas's contract was restructured, and he will be a starting corner for these Bills coming next season. At least there's that, right? At least there's that, right? So that is one aspect that you do feel good about today, and you have that locked down when we're talking about the corner situation here. But you can add one more draft need, right? Not that I don't think it wasn't already on there. I think it definitely was already on there. But now you now that we're talking about it out loud, you think about it even more, right? Darren coming in saying Beane not playing nice with his money, y'all. No doubt about it. Beane is out here wheeling and dealing today. Big baller Beane today. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall today. And, here's the other thing, too, that's crazy about a day like today. And this is something I feel like is not talked about at all when it comes to being a general manager of a football team. Do you know how hard of it, and this is the same for Sean McDermott as well. I'm sure he's involved in all these conversations and is involved in the overall sit down process that occurs with these players. Do you know how hard it has to be? I want you to in this moment, as I lay this out to you, sit in the moment and put yourself in the shoes of both Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, and simultaneously put yourself in the shoes of the player. Do you know how hard it is to sit down with a guy like Tre'Davious White, who you drafted, right? This was the beginning of your career. Tre'Davious White was the beginning of the new Bills, the beginning of the new era, the beginning of the reason why Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane are who they are today. And you got to sit down with Tre'Davious White, that guy, your first pick in that 2017 draft. You got to sit down with him across the way from you after 2 season-ending injuries, and you got to tell the guy it's over. You know how hard that's got to be to do? You know how hard that's got to be to hear? Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott had to do that today to 3 different guys that you could argue have been 3 major pieces to this franchise over the last decade or so. In the span of one afternoon. In the span of one afternoon, Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott had to sit across the way from 3 major pivotal pieces of this team and tell them they're no longer a part of it. I wouldn't. This is why not everybody can have these jobs, man. Not everybody can succeed. Not everybody can be up for a task like that. These jobs go far beyond being cap wizards, go far beyond being great evaluators of talent. You have got to be a business-oriented person at the end of the day, and you have got to be able to sit in that position and do what is necessary of you in that moment. You have got to be able to do the things that nobody would ever want to do. And that is essentially sitting down and telling somebody it's over. I don't know if you've ever broken up with a significant other. Any of you in here, we're at almost 6,000 people in here right now. And I'm sure some of you have had to sit down and break up with somebody that you probably still loved, you still liked, but it wasn't working out. Whether you had to do it long distance, or whether you were just at a different phase of your life than that person, for whatever reason, you still really liked them, but you had to move on. I'm sure many of you in here have done that. It's not easy. Imagine doing that 3 different times to 3 different people in an hour. And it's not like you're like the Deonte Harty one, for instance. Like, you brought Deonte Harty in to be a special teams addition. It didn't wind up being what you thought it would be, whatever. You move on from Deonte Harty. Deonte Harty didn't come in and take over the Buffalo Bills. It's probably a little easier to say to Deonte Harty, hey, thanks for your time here. We're moving on. So you understand that, right? So it'd be different if you had like 3 Deonte Harty situations today where you come in for a year and you move on. We're talking about 3 heavy hitters here, man. We're talking about captains. We're talking about Pro Bowlers, all pros, multi-year guys. And the Tre'Davious White one of all of them had to be the hardest. That was the first draft pick for Brandon Beane, I believe. I know for yes. Wait, hold on. No. I always forget this. Brandon Beane was hired immediately after that draft pick, right? It's odd because the Bills hired Brandon Beane literally like a month after the firing of Doug Whaley. So Doug Whaley drafted Tre'Davious White, I believe, right? Yes. Yeah, they fired him the day after the draft. Yeah, of course. Such an odd situation. So I always think Brandon Beane, right, comes to the team in 2017. I always assume, because it's been that long, you always assume, oh, he was around for the draft pick, but he wasn't. but it's still to its core, it's still all the same because he takes over literally the day after the draft pick and then has to do with the team what he ends up doing. So essentially, when you come in as Brandon Beane, right, this is the first pick for Sean McDermott, right? This is the first draft pick for Sean McDermott, a defensive-oriented guy, obviously. So you bring in Tre'Davious White as your first ever draft pick as the head coach. Now, Brandon Beane wasn't the one calling the shots for that draft pick for these Bills, but he still comes in that year in his first year on the job. That's the first draft pick that he's welcoming into the team and that he's starting to rebuild this team with, right? That one out of all of them has had to have been the absolute toughest, I would imagine. Just because these guys all come, even though Brandon Beane wasn't the one who pulled the trigger on Tre'Davious White, all of these guys came to the Bills in the exact same year. I mean, this is why this had to have been so difficult. Same can be said for Jordan Poyer. These guys all joined the Bills in the exact same year. They all come into the building, right? Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer, Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane, they all enter the building in the same year. They have been together throughout the entirety of their careers in Buffalo. I just can't imagine how difficult it must have been to sit across the way from those guys who have been through it all with you and tell them it's over. My dad just texted me, wow, period. Man, like I said, the Tre'Davious White one, I'm most fixated on from the perspective of them actually making this announcement to him, right? Because, like I mentioned, so Doug Whaley drafts Tre'Davious White, yes, but Brandon Beane comes in literally the day after. This is the first overall pick. This is the first round pick that Brandon Beane now has to work with and build around. This is the first draft pick in the first round for Sean McDermott as the head coach of the Buffalo Bills, right? They are all coming in at the same time. And now after this has just got to be one of the hardest things you could ever really do. I can't imagine. Because not only are you doing this to a guy that you start your career with, but you do it to a guy that just came off of back-to-back season-ending injuries. And you know, the toughest part about the whole thing, too, is you know how good he was and how good he could have been if it weren't for the injuries. I'll say this. I know it'll get lost on a lot of people. It'll get lost on a lot of people. A lot of credit to Brandon Beane for being able to do it, and Sean McDermott. That'll get lost on a lot of people. I know it's their job. I know they get paid millions of dollars to do it. That is not an easy thing to do. It had to happen. Like many people have said, it's not all that shocking. The shocking element is that it's all happening at once. It had to happen, right? But I don't care what you say, man. There's a human element to this game, and there's no way in hell that was an easy conversation from the perspective of anybody involved in it. Let's go back to some more super chats. We got nearly 6,100 in here. Crazy day at One Bills Drive. Make sure to leave your comments. Give me your overall thoughts on this whole situation. This is just absolute insanity unfolding at One Bills Drive today, as essentially an entire offseason's worth of cap restructuring and work and cuts and releases and this and that and the other thing that happened in the span of one afternoon in Orchard Park, New York. Just an absolutely wild afternoon for these Buffalo Bills. Richie coming in saying, no, we already did that one. Richie's got another one here. Richie saying, honestly, not worried. Benford, Bernard, Milana. I mean, this is the one thing that is nice, is that luckily for us, we did see the shining elements of guys that we would not have thought had the capability, right? Benford and Bernard being those two. You just did not know that that was possible to have those two guys come in and be as good as they were, especially probably Terrell Bernard, right? Where it's just like, how could you have imagined that it was going to end up being as good as it ended up being? Like, you don't know what you have until it's kind of thrusted out in front of you. And when you have no other choice but to see you have no other choice but to play the cards you're dealt. When Matt Milano goes down and Bernard's got to step up, I mean, he did so up until he was injured. And not only that, but when you lose a guy like Tremaine Edmonds, who they lost on their own volition, right? That was a choice the Bills made. It wasn't one that they absolutely had to do, but it was one that they made nonetheless. When you move on from a first-round draft pick like they did with Tremaine Edmonds, there's going to be a lot of people out there wondering, can they fill the shoes? Now, I understand there wasn't a whole lot of love lost when it came to Tremaine Edmonds. A lot of people were anticipating and were happy with the move made on Tremaine Edmonds when he was let go, but no one knew the result of that was going to be Terrell Bernard coming in and absolutely kicking major ass. And we know that before Milano got hurt, Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano were looking like they were on pace to be the best linebacker tandem in the NFL. So you do have these gems that pop out of nowhere that do have you excited, but that's why you got to keep uncovering these gems, man. That's why you got to keep on picking away at the dirt in this draft and finding these gems, because this is the new era starting up. And these are going to be the gems that are going to be the cornerstones of the new era. These are going to be the guys 7 years from now we're talking about the way we're talking about Morse and Poyer and Tre'Davious White today. This draft is just, if you didn't think it was huge before today, it is such a huge draft. Top Retired said, this defense went on as far as they could. They are the reason we have fallen flat in the playoffs. It's so hard to weigh this to me. Of course, they were the reason they fell flat against the Chiefs. A.J. Klein was in there off the family vacay, right? I'm not making excuses. I'm stating facts. The defense for the Bills against the Chiefs was half of what it was supposed to be. So that's why you could argue that they fall flat in that game. But you're right. It does feel like the times where the Bills had their best defenses, it didn't end up showcasing itself as such. Defense did not look good at all against the Cincinnati Bengals. Neither did the offense, but still, it's a team sport. And we all know that the defense couldn't get a stop in the 13-second game. And neither could the Chiefs defense, but it wasn't the way the scale tilted. But we have sample sizes of a couple of games, right? This is the problem. These sample sizes where the defense doesn't get it done, this and that. There's no debating this. This is a fact. The longevity of this defense under Sean McDermott has been extraordinary. There is no denying it. Yes. Are there pitfalls in the playoffs? Are there games you wish you could have back? Absolutely. Absolutely. But under Sean McDermott, this defense has been nothing shy of extraordinary. They've been nothing shy of one of the league's best. And when you look at the internal personnel, the individual players, Bills D has certainly had some of the best. And, that's why today it's a huge gut punch that defense now loses two of the guys that were a big part of that. All of this happening at once today is a wild, wild ride. A wild ride. And I know you guys are all as stunned as I am. We're at over 6,200 people live in here on the Smoke Break on the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel. I'm sure we got a ton of new people in here as well. So do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. We'll be talking about this stuff all throughout the offseason. Hell, if the offseason is if today's any indicator as to how the offseason will be, we'll have a lot more of these going on. That's for sure. That is for damn sure. So make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can be notified when we're doing the next one of these, whatever this is. I don't even know what to coin this, right? By the way, I haven't mentioned that the Bills also have signed Matt Hawk to a 1-year deal to punt the ball. That's kind of that's just based on everything that's happened today. So that's the crazy thing is like something like that, might be something like that on any other day might be the big news story of the day for the Bills, right? But when you do as much as the Bills have done within one afternoon here, this is just wild shit. I can't remember a day like this. Just going over to Spot Track here to see if anything is officially completely updated. And it's not. But all told, I think like I had mentioned earlier, all told, the Bills essentially, it's not complete. They're not completely done yet. But the Bills more or less solved almost their entire cap situation in one afternoon today. This is just nuts. They were over $40 million. They were $40 million over the cap. And they have shattered that down to about 14 or so. Now, once again, how do you guys view this? Is all being done today strictly due to the fact that they had to get down to the cap number, right? They had to get down to even or above, or below rather? Or is there something bigger at play? Just seems like a lot being done. At one given time with the free agency starting next week. I just don't know who would be I don't know who the target would be, if anything. To me, it just all comes down to the draft. I want to sit here and think, oh, there's a bigger play at hand here, but at the end of the day, I don't really know if there is. This is just the reality of the situation that was the Bills cap structure. This is just kind of the reality of the situation. I want to sit here and think that an entire afternoon's worth of crazy moves left and right was in pursuit of this major move for these Bills to make. But the more you think about it, the more I don't really know if it is, because this is what had to be done. Doing what had to be done doesn't necessarily signify that they're doing it because there's something big, shiny, and exciting around the corner. I think it's just a matter of the fact that it had to be done. I think the problem is we sit here with all of this happening, and you almost feel like there has to be a payoff for this, right? Like you sit here and you see all this happening at once, and you can't help but think there's got to be a payoff to this. And in the reality of the situation is that the only payoff is, hey, congratulations, you're now down to where you need to be when it comes to the salary cap. Justin Go Buffalo saying, just joined. Please recap all the moves this afternoon. Gladly. I'll do that for everybody in here as we are now approaching nearly 6,400 people currently live here on the Buffalo Fanatics. That is some craziness, and that is because we've had a crazy day at One Bills Drive, and everybody, of course, is joining in together to experience it together, because this is going to be a day I don't think we're going to soon forget. So to recap to everybody who might just be coming around to the stream or coming around to Twitter and saying, what the hell is going on in Buffalo? Here's your recap of what has gone on today with Brandon Beane and these Buffalo Bills. So the day started off around what? 3 o'clock, I guess you could say. Around 3 o'clock or so, the Buffalo Bills announced that they were going to be moving on from Jordan Poyer. And that at the time felt like it was going to be the big move of the day, because I don't know how you could see it being bigger than that. That was just the tip of the iceberg. The Bills would then go on to make a variety of other moves throughout the day and eventually get to nearly shaving $26 million off of their cap situation. Not only did the Bills release Jordan Poyer, the Bills also released Saran Neal. The Bills released center Mitch Morse. The Bills just 40 minutes ago released first-round draft pick from 2017, Tre White. In addition, they also released Deonte Harty. They restructured Rasul Douglas's contract. They announced that Matt McGovern is going to be the pseudo center now in place of Mitch Morse. I mean, did I get it all? That is what has happened today. If you are just joining, that is the synopsis of what's happened today, and I think I got it all. It's tough to keep track. Once again, let's start from the beginning. If you're just joining today, if you're just coming around to Twitter, or you're just looking at your phone after work and you're saying, what is going on in Buffalo? Once again, the day kicked off at One Bills Drive with the release of Jordan Poyer, no longer a Buffalo Bill. That then turned into the release of Deonte Harty, the release of center Mitch Morse, the release of Tre White, the release, the restructuring of Rasul Douglas, the release of Saran Neal. All told, the Bills go into today with about a $40 million salary cap, or for about $40 million over the salary cap. They chop off about $26 million from that cap situation in the span of about an hour. A wild day. PVC fam coming in here saying, so in total, after all of this, what do we save in cap space? So, like I said, they go into today and they were about $40 million over the cap. I'll give you each individual situation and how that affected the salary cap. So, most recently, the Bills just released Tre White. He is going to be, according to Adam Schefter, designated as a post-June 1 cut. This will save the Bills $10.2 million off the salary cap. So the Tre White move alone was a $10.2 million saving. They then released Mitch Morse and Deonte Harty. Those two moves, according to Adam Schefter, collectively totaled into $12.8 million in freed up salary cap. The restructuring of Rasul Douglas, that freed up $2.5 million off the cap for these Buffalo Bills. And then I believe the Jordan Poyer situation, that ended up freeing up. Let me just double check. That freed up a pretty significant amount of money as well. Just double check on the Jordan Poyer one. Man, what a wild day. The Mitch Morse one in itself, by the way, that alone was an $8.5 million saving for these Buffalo Bills. Man. Did someone have the exact number? By the way, the cap situation is so insane to me. One website's always got a different number than the other website. I can never tell which one's 100% accurate or not. It pisses me off. Does anyone have the exact number on Jordan Poyer, by the way? The exact cap number? I had it like, here we go. $5.7 million, I believe. Mersh is saying 7.5. My buddy Marsh is saying 7.5. But I'm seeing on Twitter 5.7. This is what I'm saying. Yeah, and Tyson's saying 5.7 too. This is what is so annoying to me about this. One person says one thing, the other says another thing. I'm not necessarily sure who's right and who's wrong and whatever. And I want to go to Spot Track, but I don't think it's completely updated yet. Let's try Over the Cap, right? Let's try that one. I saw someone mention that. That's a good one. Pulling that up real quick. So this is what I'm getting at. This is why I'm not entirely sure which one is completely updated and which one's not. Because overthecap.com has the Bills at $19 million over the current cap as it stands right now. And Spot Track has them at $16 million over the cap, but that's not including the I don't believe that's including the Nyheim Hines situation. So let me go to Twitter real quick and just double check. By the way, as I'm on Twitter, I wanted to pull this up real quick. Saw this awesome video. I mean, I was talking earlier about the significance of some of these guys to this team, in particular, Jordan Poyer having been a captain and really been one of the cornerstones for these Bills since the beginning of the Sean McDermott era. Here's Sean McDermott himself just the other day speaking on the impact that Jordan Poyer has had for these Buffalo Bills since he's arrived and since he became a Buffalo Bill, because this gives you a good idea of what he meant to this team. And of course, Sean McDermott is well aware of that. Here's Sean McDermott via Dan Feets, by the way. This was from his Twitter. But here's a video of Sean McDermott just the other day at the combine speaking on Jordan Poyer.
Instrumental in our success. Jordan has been just instrumental in our success and the growth of our organization, our team, our defense. Can't say enough good about Jordan, just like Micah. And usually when I say one, the other one comes to mind as well. And so I think Jordan for us has been a player, among other things that probably to me that stand out. His toughness, his mental and physical toughness is what to me rises to the surface when he's out there for us versus when he's not, in terms of the toughness of our overall defense. I think Jordan does a great job of driving that. Jordan has been... I think it's well put. I think we've noticed over the years, the difference between defense with Jordan Poyer on the field and a defense with Jordan Poyer off the field. I go back to, if you remember a couple of seasons ago when these Buffalo Bills lost Jordan Poyer, and they had to play the Baltimore Ravens. It was the next game back for these Bills. It was on the road in Baltimore, and it was the first game back for Jordan Poyer. And I remember him making that incredible interception in the back right corner of the end zone on Lamar Jackson to win the game for the Bills. And I remember it was in that moment where you just noticed the difference between this Bills defense with Jordan Poyer, this Bills defense without Jordan Poyer. And that was a game just off the top of my head where, the Bills don't win it if he's not on the field. And I think that there's probably a lot of games you go back and look at throughout time where you say to yourself, are these Bills the exact same team, or do they have the exact same outcomes if it weren't for Jordan Poyer out on the field or Micah Hyde out on the field with him, right? I mean, it's crazy. Colt McAndrews coming in here. He's saying this has to be Beane's biggest draft yet. Yeah, I've been on this for about a month now, I'd say, and I think this is now. I'll triple down on it. This to me has got to be the draft of Brandon Beane's career. This is going to be, like I was saying, I was watching earlier the Dynasty New England Patriots documentary on Apple TV, and they had felt going into the 2010 draft that their team was on a decline. Now, don't get me twisted here, okay? The Buffalo Bills are not
what the Patriots were in the early 2000s. Nobody is. But they had felt that that team was on a decline. And they go into the 2010 draft, and the reason that the dynasty resurged is because of what they did in that draft. You are able to completely restructure your team in a single draft if you do it right. And we got to remember, the Bills have done good things as of late to add to what they can do in this draft. We're going to get another year of development from Khalil Shakir. We're going to get another year of development from Dalton Kincaid. We're going to get another year of development from James Cook. And we've all seen the flashes that are capable of all three of those guys. Spencer Brown comes on a season ago, right? You're just going to have to find other ways to continuously add, to continuously find these guys where you're saying, like, for instance, Khalil Shakir, where you're like, damn, I didn't know he had that capability. Damn, I didn't know he was that good at catching the ball. This guy catches everything that comes his way, right? But to me, it's not as much the late round picks. You're hoping that you get those late round picks that end up being a factor for your team. The way I see it, the Bills, as it stands right now, it's the beginning of the draft, the top 3 rounds this coming draft that they have got to absolutely nail. Absolutely nail. Because it just feels like if they don't, they don't have the luxury anymore of falling back on veteran lead. Excuse me. They don't have the luxury anymore of falling back on veteran leadership to kind of circumvent not nailing the top of the draft. It just seems like it's something that they don't currently have the luxury of doing anymore because you're watching it in real time. You're watching in real time right now this veteran leadership sort of phase out a bit here. Once again, PVC was saying, so all told, after all of this, what do we save in cap? Essentially, today, the Bills saved around $26 million in cap space. And that's not including, I believe, what they did the other day with Nyheim Hines. So within the last couple of days here, the Bills have essentially saved about $30 million. We have a little bit of other news coming in, just in via Tim Graham on Twitter. Tim Graham, beat reporter for The Athletic. Bills and former quarterback Mitchell Trubisky in talks to reunite, source tells Tim Graham. Steelers released him, so he's free to sign now. That's interesting. The Bills definitely needed to upgrade at the backup quarterback position. I never felt like Kyle Allen was going to be an adequate suitor if Josh Allen ended up going down. Now, I've been on record 1,000 times saying if Josh Allen goes down, the whole season essentially goes down with it. But I still feel like this team can be competitive with the right backup quarterback. Mitch Trubisky, to me, always felt like the adequate backup quarterback. You want to have a backup quarterback that somewhat resembles the style of play that your quarterback plays. And I think that if there was a Josh Allen light, if there was a backup Josh Allen in the league, I feel like a great example of that would be Mitch Trubisky. I always felt good. And good's not the right word. I always felt better knowing if something happened to Josh Allen, Mitch Trubisky could take over. Mitch Trubisky's taking a team to the playoffs, a first-round draft pick, athletic. We know he has some capability. I never felt like if Josh Allen went down, Kyle Allen comes in, it's over. If Mitch Trubisky comes in, I think that this team can still be competitive. So via Tim Graham about 10 minutes ago, the Bills are in conversation to bring back what was the former backup quarterback in Buffalo, Mitch Trubisky. He was in Pittsburgh and now released by Pittsburgh, is in talks with the Bills to rejoin the team as a backup quarterback. Oh, my God. Just perusing Twitter here, getting the vibe. I mean, take a look at this graphic. Look at this graphic just in one. In one graphic, you got three studs gone, two captains gone. Let's go to your reactions. Let's see how you guys feel. Air Allen saying next week is going to be fun. See, I don't know if it is or it isn't. The way I see it, it's like I think that this just had to be done because it had to be done. Maybe something's in the works for Brandon Beane next week that we don't anticipate. Who knows? I don't know. But to me, this just feels more like this is the dirty work that had to be done, and it got done. Cobb Newell coming in saying, I'm sick, Z-Bot. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of us today are sad as hell, losing Tre'Davious White, losing Jordan Poyer, losing Mitch Morse. You woke up today, right? When you woke up today, this Bills team was an entirely different team than it is when you're going to bed tonight. That's the reality of the situation. Whether or not it was inevitable is one thing, because many will argue it was, and yeah, it probably was. I don't know if the Mitch Morse situation was ever inevitable. I don't really ever feel like we got down that rabbit hole all that much. But we certainly had our conversations about moving off of Jordan Poyer. We certainly had our conversations about moving off of Tre'Davious White. I don't think we ever had the conversation about moving off of all of these guys within an hour of one day in the middle of the week. You woke up this morning with the Buffalo Bills having an entirely different team than they do when you hit the pillow tonight. That's a fact. So it is kind of sad. It is sickening. There's really no other way to put it. My main man Bartek, Morse, Poyer, and Tre represented all that is Buffalo. Yes. Poyer was an excellent representation of Buffalo. Everybody, and you want to talk about universally loved guys. Who didn't love those three guys? Who didn't love Jordan Poyer? Who didn't love Mitch Morse? Who didn't love Tre White? Big ball of bean. Remember? In light of, let's watch that video real quick. Let me find that. Let's have a smile as we think about the time spent with Tre'Davious White. The big ball of bean quote in the cafeteria is a classic. I figured it would have been easier to find than I figured if I just Googled it, I could find it. I'm not seeing it. I think I found it, but it got removed. I thought that video would have been a lot easier to access than it was. I guess not. Here I am trying to have a nice smile, a nice laugh. To no avail. Classic. What else we got going on here in the comments? Man. Ryan saying Knox has to be next. No, a lot of money for a backup tight end. So as I was talking about earlier, the ones where my eyes were focused in on when it came to the players most affected by most affecting the cap, Tre'Davious White was certainly at the top of that list. We know how that stands now. And then it was Von Miller and Dawson Knox. Dawson Knox for sure is on my radar of guys you have to look out for. What's going to happen with Dawson Knox? I think we saw that the utilization of Dalton Kincaid is going to be a more prominent feature than the utilization of Dawson Knox. I think we saw that not only on display last year due to the fact that Dawson Knox got injured, but also due to the fact that I just think Dalton Kincaid was drafted to be more, the bigger role player. They didn't know that Dalton Kincaid was going to be there for them when they gave Dawson Knox the money that they gave him. Now, they attempted to run the two-man show last year. I don't know if we were able to get a great look at it because of the injury to Dawson Knox. I don't know if that was ever adequately displayed for us to really get a judgment call on. But at the end of the day, the reality remains that we have too much money tied up in a situation at tight end where you feel pretty confident in your now second-year player being not only potentially the better player out on the field, but certainly the better player with far less effect on the cap. I don't think they want to get rid of Dawson Knox by any means, but like I said, they paid him money that would attribute to him being the starting centerpiece of that position. And now once you go and get Dalton Kincaid, probably a situation the Bills didn't think they were going to end up being in, it's a totally different situation now. When you paid him, that wasn't the situation at hand. So I would certainly imagine that a restructuring for Dawson Knox has to be around the corner. Now, what's going to go on with the Von Miller situation? I have no clue. I mean, makes you wonder how much different the situation in general for these Bills would be this offseason if the Von Miller situation in itself wasn't a situation at all. There's going to be a lot of woulda, coulda, shouldas when it comes to thinking back on the situation surrounding Von Miller. The move itself, the money involved itself, of course, the injury and how much that impacted what he could have been for this team. I mean, there's just so much. I mean, that's going to go down as one of those. You know what I mean? That's going to go it's just going to go down as one of those. You're going to look back on it and you're going to think, man, that didn't go the way we wanted it to go. I mean, there's just no other way to put it. You know, and it makes you wonder. I mean, right now, Von Miller, as it stands, going into this year, he is a 23.7, near at pretty much $23.8 million cap hit, roughly 9.5% of the overall cap. I mean, it's for a guy that, I mean, what did he have last year? A tackle? Three. I mean, it's hard to even talk about, really. You know, you gotta throw your cards on the table sometimes and make a big move. And it was a move at the time that we can't lie. We all sat around and felt like it was the right move. It felt like the Bills were an edge presence away. They went out and they did what they felt they had to do in order to get that edge presence. I will say, ironically enough, I think there's a lot that's come from the Von Miller signing that has not been directly seen on the field from Von Miller himself. I'll never forget. I remember bumping into Brandon Beane in Nashville. I was in Nashville for the Bills-Titans game a couple of years ago. Or no, excuse me. It wasn't in Nashville. It was in Cincinnati. This was the DeMar Hamlin game, actually. I remember bumping into Brandon Beane literally in the middle of the street. And I couldn't believe it. So I went up to him and I just wanted to say hi and, you know, give him some love, really. I mean, there's Brandon Beane. I love Brandon Beane. But I remember asking him, this was, you know, about the Von Miller situation. And I bring this up every time this comes up because I have always thought this to be true. And I was essentially given, you know, assurance of that from Brandon Beane. I was like, you know, how big of an impact was Von Miller, you know, coming to this team? How big of an impact surrounding the signing did it have? Like, how much did that have to do with his impact he would have on the young guys on the team, right? Like Greg Rousseau, AJ Epinesa, right? Ed Oliver. And he said it had a lot to do. He said it was a huge factor. He said he really felt as though Von Miller would be a major. I'm kind of paraphrasing here. I don't remember the exact verbiage, of course. This was like well over a year ago, 2 years ago now. But he basically told me that it was a big was a big deal to have Von Miller on the team to help out these young guys and really get them to become their full potential, become the best of their capabilities. And whether or not that was entirely, or whether or not that came about because of Von Miller, or how much that came about because of Von Miller, that's up for debate. But I don't think it's a secret. All of those guys have gotten significantly better since Von Miller was added to this team. Now, I don't know how much of that has to do with Von Miller, like I just said. I don't know. But I don't know. I don't know how it could be that much of a, I don't know how it could be entirely a coincidence if all of those guys got a lot better with the addition of Von Miller. Now, with that said, you can't give the contract you give to Von Miller to him just for him to be a veteran presence in the locker room and help build up your young guys. That contract is not indicative of that type of role. But I just find it ironic that it does seem like the edge presence for the Bills has gotten significantly better when they signed Von Miller, but it's essentially had nothing to do with Von Miller. You know what I mean? Whether or not he benefited the team with his presence, that's one thing. But I just find it interesting that the team has gotten a lot better in that department that they tried to fix with the addition of Von Miller, and it really hasn't necessarily been because of Von Miller at all. I mean, obviously, like when I was talking to Beane there, I mean, obviously, when you sign a veteran guy, that of course is in the mind of anybody. So, I mean, I guess it was obviously going to be, the answer was, of course, going to be, yeah, of course, that had something to do with it. But no one, you don't sign Von Miller with the idea that he's going to blow out his leg, right? Like that isn't in the cards when you're making that move. That isn't part of the ideology. You're thinking you're going to bring in Von Miller and you're going to have a similar type of effect on the team that he gave to the Rams, and it's going to spark this team in an area that they desperately need a spark in, and this is going to be their ability to get over the hump, because we saw the year prior, the Bills could not get to Patrick Mahomes. They could not get around the corner and get a presence on Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship. They lost pretty handily, and we watched 2 weeks later, the Bucs were all over Patrick Mahomes, and they beat the hell out of him in the Super Bowl. Everyone knew then and there the Bills are an edge presence away. So we look back on it, in hindsight, of course, is 2020. We look back on it. I think a lot of us looked at that Von Miller move and said, this is what the Bills had to do. But you could not have anticipated it being what it's been. And obviously, it's been pretty much an unmitigated disaster. And, you can't factor in. It's like with Tre'Davious White. You can't factor in season-ending injuries when it comes to making moves like this. I mean, nobody would have anticipated when it came to having to figure out what the move was going to be for Tre'Davious White in his career in Buffalo. I doubt anybody sat around thinking that they were going to have to factor in 2 consecutive season-ending injuries. I mean, it sucks. It sucks. But that's the reality of the league, man. That is the reality of this sport. Take one more glance on Twitter before we'll wrap it up. I hate to wrap it up because we're going strong here, but we're hitting on like 2.5 hours, and I feel like we might need to just kind of decompress. Everybody needs to kind of go and just sit back and make sense of it all. A wild day at One Bills Drive. Man, I'll tell you. What a day. Once again, I'll say it again. I don't think no one would have been shocked by the Jordan Poyer move, I think, on its own. It wasn't necessarily that it was shocking. It was that it was sad, and it was that it was reality now, and we had to face it, right? But the fact that happened, and then the Tre'Davious White happens in the same day, and then the Mitch Morse, which I think the Mitch Morse out of everything is just the biggest shocker. Like I said earlier when we were talking about Mitch Morse, it just felt like Mitch Morse has been such a cornerstone for this team for the last half decade. You barely ever think to reference him because you just know he's going to be there. He's going to be ready. You're going to get the best out of Mitch Morse. You know he's going to be the guy for Josh Allen that you can rely on. Right? You don't even think about, like when it came to this situation, I didn't think about the thought of losing Mitch Morse. He just has always felt like a guy that's going to be there. Despite the concussions, it just felt like this guy is an ultimate warrior. This guy he's a stud. Mitch Morse is a stud. Now, I wonder when it comes to Mitch Morse, I wonder with Jordan Poyer, we're going to see him go somewhere else, obviously. I think we're going to see, well, maybe not obviously, who knows? I think very, very likely. But, who knows? Maybe he hangs it up. I doubt it. I sincerely doubt it. But Tre'Davious White, guaranteed he'll be going somewhere else. Right? Mitch Morse, I wonder if he just retires it. Right? I just wonder if Mitch retires. Because there was talks about him potentially hanging it up anyways due to his concussion situation. And there's been talks around that for a while now. But I wonder if this is just hey, you know what? Let's call it a career. Spot Track, the runner of Spot Track, by the way, on Twitter. And this is what we talked about earlier when we were talking about the cap situation, how they were essentially just one Josh Allen move away, one restructure away from being under the cap. The official account of Spot Track on Twitter essentially says the same. A full base salary plus roster bonus conversion to signing bonus for quarterback Josh Allen can now open up enough cap space, $22.7 million, for the Bills to be cap compliant next week. That doesn't mean more moves aren't imminent, but there's a clear path for the Bills to get into the positive. So that's essentially what we said earlier. The Bills have done so much in one day today that if they want to be done, they can be done. All they would have to do is bring Josh Allen in, restructure it, and the Bills go from having the worst cap situation in the league to, in the blink of an eye, being cap compliant within an afternoon. All they have to do now, restructure Josh Allen, and it's done. A wild afternoon. I mean, they go into today $40 million over the cap. Worst situation in the league. And within the span of an afternoon, you're a Josh Allen restructure away from being under the cap. And Twitter's having a field day with this, huh? I'm just scrolling through here, making sure I don't miss anything before we wrap it up, because just felt like every 10 seconds earlier we were getting something new. I've just been sitting here talking about it so long. I'm just kind of like trying to. I'll leave us with some good news, I guess. I'm just seeing this. If you're a YouTube TV person, which I am, and you have NFL Sunday Ticket, this just in. And you can do this now apparently with NBA League Pass. I don't know if you have YouTube TV, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It never let you customize your quad box. It never let you be able to customize the 4 games you wanted to watch. You always had to pick from a preset. Apparently now you can choose the 4 games you want Just thought I'd throw that out there because I've been bitching about that since it came out, and that feels like a nice little way to put a smile on your face after a heavy day at One Bills Drive. At least you can have your custom quad box now. I mean, everybody's reacted about this. For Christ's sake, Dave Portnoy, of all people, he's saying the Bills just cut their entire team. They will all be on LinkedIn soon. Hashtag Bills Mafia. I think you kind of get an understanding today, though, when you watch guys like Mitch Morse leave and Jordan Poyer leave and Tre White leave. Everybody always says, like, oh, like when you're $40 million over the cap, right? Everybody, well, not everybody. I always say that. You always hear, a lot of people say, not everybody, a lot of people, you hear them say, whatever, 40 million over the cap. The cap's a myth, right? Who cares about the cap? The cap's a made up thing. They'll figure it out. I mean, I feel like that's an easy way to just cope with the situation that you're dealt with. Because today you understand that that's not true. If that was the case, you wouldn't have to move on from two captains and, you know, the first pick of the regime of this tandem and or the first pick under Brandon Beane that was a former All-Pro and at one point was a cornerstone. I mean, to some degree, yeah, with restructuring and this and that, yeah, you can manipulate the cap, but I always hear it all the time. Oh, the cap's a myth, whatever. I think today you understand that that's not true. Because you wouldn't have that feeling that you have right now about losing out on some guys that were dearly loved in Buffalo if that were the case. You know what I'm saying? It's amazing. I mean, it just feels like the world's kind of stood still for the last 3 hours. I mean, I'm just kind of like browsing the internet. It feels like nothing else has happened. It just feels like for like a 3 hour time period, the Bills just kind of took over and just unleashed, you know? And I feel like you guys have got to feel the same. I mean, we've had about 7,000 people in here. I'm not even exaggerating. We've had literally 7,000 people in here for like the last 3 hours straight. I feel like there's just got to be a collective hive mind amongst Bills Mafia right now of what the hell is happening today. I mean, I have so much work that I have to get done, and that has now become a problem that I'm going to have to deal with in the wee hours of the night because of how much this has just kind of completely thrown my mind into a utter tailspin. Was not anticipating sitting down here with you guys for 3 hours. Like I said earlier, I thought we were going to sit down, bid adieu to a extraordinary player in and Jordan. I can't even keep the name straight. I thought we were going to sit down here, give our thanks to Jordan Poyer, and move on with our Wednesday. And little did we know that would be just the beginning of a wild day. The NFL is insane. I mean, it's March 6th, and this is like crazy. Oh boy. And now it starts. My buddy, you all know my buddy Rich over at Jets Media, AFC East Roundtable. He's tweeting out, would you be open to the Jets signing Jordan Poyer in free agency? And see, this is what I hate about this. This is what I hate about this, you know. Like if we see Jordan Poyer in a Jets uniform or a Dolphins uniform, That's what's the worst about this stuff. It's one thing to lose the guy, it sucks. But then when you see him on an opposing team like that, man, oh man. Well, here's the reality of the situation. No matter how you feel, right? No matter how you feel about the whole situation, happy, sad, a little bit of both, and I'm sure I don't know how you couldn't be at least a little bit of both. Here's the situation at hand. The Bills did what they had to do. The Bills did what they had to do. They were $40 million over the cap within a blink of an eye. They are a couple tweaks away from being completely cap compliant within one day. They've done that. They also have 11 draft picks. We can sit here and I mean, as we sit here and we almost mourn these losses to some degree, we can also understand that this is now the beginning of a new future in Buffalo. This is now the beginning of a new chapter. This is now it's a new time. It's a new time. And I think today, certainly, if you hadn't realized that, today is certainly the flare that signifies it. And the Bills have now gotten down to where they need to be in order to start figuring out how they're going to address this future. And on top of that, they have 11 draft picks. The Buffalo Bills have 11 draft picks going into next month. They have a full free agency period to open up here now with being cap compliant or about to be. We'll see what could be in the cards. What felt like nothing could be in the cards, potentially maybe something now could be. But you also have 11 draft picks that you sit back on and you think about it, and you probably are of the assumption that I'm under, and that's they're not using all 11 of those picks. What's Brandon Beane got up his sleeve? This is a sad day, but it's also an exciting day to some degree, because I think that you have to come to terms with the fact that this Bills team is going to have to move the page at some point. And it always felt like the page would officially be turned when the Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde tandem got broken up. And that ended up just being the tip of the iceberg today. If you didn't think that was going to signify it, then I guarantee you the addition of losing Tre'Davious White and Mitch Morse has to signify it. What's next? It's a whole new era. You got Josh Allen in his prime. James Cook's off 1,000-yard year. Khalil Shakir, who's to say that he doesn't become something special? Certainly outweighed my expectations last year. Dalton Kincaid, who's to say? Who knows? The sky's the limit with Dalton Kincaid. Offensive line's the best it's been under Josh Allen. Who's to say a couple more additions, like Ricky's saying? Who's next? Who's next? Josh Allen ain't going anywhere. Therefore, this team ain't going anywhere. Just a matter of how competitive they're going to be. How competitive can they make themselves be? Can they be even more competitive? Look, I'll say this. The Bills aren't the Kansas City Chiefs. Nobody is. Nobody has been. Nobody will be until they prove that they can be. But after they moved on from Tyreek Hill, a lot of people sat around saying, well, the days of Kansas City running things are over, and they would go on to win consecutive championships. They'd win more championships without Tyreek Hill than they won with him. They did that with a borrowed Juju Smith-Schuster. They did that with a Rashee Rice, a rookie wide receiver that came out of absolutely nowhere, and towards the end of the year finally came on. He wasn't like he was a stud all year long. It wasn't like he was really a stud to begin with. It can be done. It can be done. And the Bills have laid a good foundation to get going on. James Cook, Dalton Kincaid, Khalil Shakir, that's a good young foundation. I'm not mentioning Stephon Diggs because it's not like Stephon Diggs is a young draft pick that you're waiting to evolve, into something. But we still have Stephon Diggs. Don't let that get twisted. And I got to imagine, right? Stephon Diggs, if anything, wants to probably come into this year and give it the best he's got after everything that's been talked about with him. It's going to take me a minute, but I can feel it inside of me. It's going to take me a minute, but there's a lot of reason to be excited. The draft, certainly, as we get closer to that, is going to give you even more reason. But I think the right draft has this team. There's a lot of reason to be excited if the Bills can have a good draft this year. A lot of mixed emotions. I'm at like 2.5 hours in here, and I'm like, I'm looking online right now. The Bills are the number one trending. The Bills are the top trending topic on Twitter right now. Man, there's been some iconic moments in Smoke Break Buffalo Fanatics history. I'll never forget we were live on here talking about the Bills needing to make a move after they lost to the Broncos just to have Ken Dorsey cut in the middle of, or fired in the middle of the live stream. This will go down in history, this stream, folks. I will never forget this one. I mean, we're at about 7,200 people in here, and we literally sat down here in real time and watched a changing of the guard, in my opinion. I mean, I think we sat down here with a small stadium's worth of people together as Bills fans and watched the chapter be turned at One Bills Drive. That's how I'm going to look back on this stream. I won't soon forget it. We sat down here to say goodbye to Jordan Poyer, and we ended up spending 3 hours witnessing a major overhaul in Buffalo. We sat down here with a huge crew of Bills fans and watched Brandon Beane do the tough things that we knew had to be done, but we're hoping just didn't. I don't even know how else to describe it. He did the things we were hoping we never had to have happen, but they had to happen. Steve the Barber saying end of an era. I mean, I'm in a weird bag of emotions right now. I'm just weird. Sweat saying Beane ripped the Band-Aid. I mean, that's kind of what this, you know what? A couple of you guys have really, you have defined what happened today very well in the comments, a couple of you guys. And earlier, the one that that stood out that I thought was very well put was that super chat from Richie where he's saying the kitchen sink all at once. Sweat's kind of saying the same thing here, where he's saying Beane just ripped the Band-Aid off. And it's almost like the more I'm thinking about it, the more that this was the right way to do it. This is exactly what this was. Rip the Band-Aid off. It would have been more tolerable to have, Poyer moved on from today. Maybe Tre'Davious White moved on from on Monday. Mitch Morse moved on from later that week. He just said to hell with it. It all has to happen. I'm ready to let it rip, and I'm going to rip it right off and do it all at once. And that's what he did. He ripped the Band-Aid completely off. Instead of slowly peeling it off bit by bit, he said, you know what? It has to come off at some point. Why not just take it off completely? Now, Matt's coming in here saying today was a good day for Bills fans. Y'all tripping. Well, listen, let's take it two ways. It can be both. It can be both. I think today is a good day in the sense that what was done today was what had to be done. What was done today is what had to be done. It is the ripping of the Band-Aid off, like Sweat said, right? Had to be done. It's a good day in the sense that that is now done. It's over with. You move on. You can't look back on it. You have to move forward. And what the Bills have done today is exactly what they had to do. Become cap compliant, put the past in the past, and get ready for this new chapter. The reason it's a sad day is for the same reasons that it's a good day. That's the reality. The reason it's a sad day for Bills fans is the same reason it's an exciting day. Because in order to head into this next chapter, in order to start getting young and talented and start semi-rebuilding the core of this team, you got to move on from the guys that were the core of this team, or at least at one point were, studs for this organization at given times. That's the sad part. You also lose three guys that a lot of people loved. They were fan favorites. They felt like they were all lifers for the Bills, right? That's what it all comes down to. It's sad because you lose two captains, you lose two guys, you lose three guys that everybody loved. You just lose three guys that I think the fans resonated with a ton and it will always view as Bills. And to lose all of those guys within 45 minutes is a lot. That's a lot to bear within that short amount of time. So it's not like it's this crazy loss on the field. It's not like it's this crazy loss in talent, because in reality, Tre White hasn't been on the field the last 2 years. The Jordan Poyer situation in itself, of course, we knew was going to be probably inevitable either this year or next year, and he was only getting older. And the Mitch Morse, despite being shocking, we had been tooling around with the idea of him retiring or not playing for a while now based on his concussion history. So it's just the fact that it's all happening at once. I don't see what happened today significantly hindering the Bills talent-wise. I think it's just more so a farewell to a chapter of the Buffalo Bills that we had been, reading for a while now. That's what it feels like. It's just a lot in one chapter, and it feels like today was a real big exclamation point to signify time to turn the page. We're right in the next one. So, yeah. Let's leave it at that. We're at about 3 hours. I hate to cut this. I mean, we got about 7,500 people in here, and I hate to cut it, but we're 2 hours, 45 minutes in, and I don't know how many more times I can tell you how stunned I am that today went the way it did, but that's the way it went. Today was a day of days. Today was a wild day. Richie, before we close up shop, Richie came in saying, Beane drafts, but does Allen have power for wide receiver? That's the questions we're going to answer over the next month now. It went from, we're going to have to go wide receiver, right? To now we're thinking corner. Now we're thinking maybe center. Now we're thinking safety. I mean, it's all over the board. Today has definitely put a lot more on the forefront of our minds than I think we had there when we woke up this morning. That's what happens when you wind up getting rid of three guys in the span of an hour that you just did not foresee. One more super chat quickly before we close up shop. Thoughts on McGovern going to center, or do we draft? I mean, I don't think that the Bills are going to move. I don't think they're going to move McGovern to center without some sort of other plan in place. Now, I don't know if they're going to go center right off the bat, first round. I have to imagine, though, in this coming draft, the Bills are going to be looking for a succession plan for Mitch Morse that isn't just moving Connor McGovern to center. I got a feeling that that's probably going to be a combination. It's probably going to be a dual effort there between the draft and McGovern, and then you see what happens from there. So who knows? But as it stands right now, it has been announced that McGovern will be the interim center. And I say interim because I don't know what their other plan would be, but that's been the announcement for now. We'll see what the draft holds. We'll see what free agent holds. We'll see what the next month and a half holds. I mean, there's a lot to uncover. over the next month. I doubt anything gets uncovered more abruptly and swiftly than it did today. But we'll see. We still got like a month and a half till the draft. So who the hell knows? But hey, I can't thank you guys enough for tuning in today. This was wild. I sat down here, like I said 100 times already. I sat down here thinking we were going to say goodbye to Jordan Poyer, and we wound up getting a barrage of Buffalo Bills news. We wound up sitting down here together with thousands upon thousands of you guys joining in with me to essentially change the chapter to the new era of the Buffalo Bills as we say goodbye to Jordan Poyer, as we say goodbye to Tre White, as we say goodbye to Mitch Morse. It is a different Buffalo Bills team in the evening of March 6th than it was in the morning of March 6th. It's a bittersweet day saying goodbye to some legends of the last 5 to 7 years. Also an exciting day to know that the Bills are about to get young, hopefully talented, and build a new era around Josh Allen and hopefully try to be even more successful than this previous era, which we know did a pretty damn good job. On your way out, do me a favor. I know we had a lot of new guys in here tonight. Please hit that subscribe button. We'll be covering all of this throughout the remaining days and, of course, throughout the next month and a half going into the draft. In fact, my main man, Rico, will be live with you, I think, tonight to talk even more about this. So you'll go from me right into Rico, and he'll give you all of his thoughts on this because this is one of those days where you got to get the thoughts from everybody. So make sure to hit subscribe. Make sure to hit that bell notification icon so you are alerted of when we end up going live, when we post. And then throw this a like on your way out as well if you enjoyed it. I would really appreciate it. On top of that, make sure to check out my friends over at BetUS in the link in the description below. You go over, you sign up for BetUS with the link in the description below using the code JOIN125. They will give you 3 bonuses. Or excuse me, they will give you 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,500. So a major promo going on with BetUS. You can take advantage of that down in the link in the description below. And as I was saying earlier, they usually update the odds of free agents and where they end up going. Keep an eye on BetUS. I'm sure in the near future we might see the next potential landing spot for Jordan Poyer. I know I'll be interested to see that. If they end up posting it on there. So make sure to go check that out in the link in the description below. Hey, I can't thank you guys enough. What a wild day over at One Bills Drive. What a crazy day for this Buffalo Bills franchise. And I'm so glad that we got to be able to spend it together here on the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel. Make sure to check out Rico tonight. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and that like button on the way out. Much love, folks. A lot to sit back and digest. When you're done with this episode, take a minute, sit back and reflect. Really soak it all in. A crazy day. I'm glad we were able to spend it together, however, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next one. Until then, folks, much love as always. And as always, go Bills.